We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
Hey, listen to this guy. Tell me how you're feeling here. You're screaming.
I am stoked, baby!
You're screaming like it's still the game going on.
We're talking about the Fightins here. The Fightins! Said!
Should...
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
E-A-G-L-E-S Eagles! Swinging a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup for the lead. Yes!
Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Hey, welcome in. It's episode 145, but tonight we're drunk on the Fightins. Good God. It's Red October, Eric. Feel like we've had this roster built for this time, built for short series. So, and listen, everywhere I turned today on social media, it was either whoever's putting out Phillies content was like, I saw the Bell Smashers put something out. The Drunk Phils guys were putting something out. You were talking about you're doing something for that. Ball's out here. Just a great time for October baseball. It's Red October. Eric, talk to me.
That's the best time of the year. Yep. Just going back, yeah, it's awesome. I love just scrolling through it and just seeing Phillies here, Phillies there. It's great just seeing everyone's takes on things. It's one of those things where going into this year, last year it was funny. We got in right at the end of the season. It was kind of like, we're going to get in, we're not going to get in. This year, definitely a different feel to it. And I don't know if I like that I'm feeling that or not, because, obviously the roster this year is on paper better than what it was last year. But you just got to temper expectations here and just take care of business one series at a time.
Listen, and I feel like the Phillies got the premium time slot, right? They got the last start time, the 8:08, and just they're going to be that place tomorrow night. I know you were talking. Are you headed down there tomorrow night?
I'll be there Tuesday and Wednesday. If I do, potentially Thursday too, if there is, but I'm hoping that it doesn't get to that point. I don't know if I could do 3 nights in a row and work the next day.
Listen, that place is just going to be rocking.
Oh, it's going to be insane. I can't wait.
If anything was an indication, if last year was any kind of indication, that place is just now knowing what they have on file and what the expectation is, I feel like it's up to us as the Philly fans, whoever's going down there, to just night after night just go in there and outdo ourselves, right? And you and I were we were going back and forth a little bit on Sunday, right? Because on Sunday, that last wild card, those slots were still kind of up in the air. There was a scenario where the Diamondbacks could have been coming here, and the Marlins could have been going to Milwaukee. Share with the audience. Share what you were sharing with me, because I didn't pick up on it at first, and then I feel like the baseball gods got something coming.
So I'm sorry. Yeah, I just need to refresh my memory. What exactly was I said? Sorry.
So we were talking about the D-backs.
Yes.
And how the D-backs,
right, yes. Okay.
they were playing the Astros, and they basically took a mulligan on that one and just kind of put out a very passive lineup, knowing that the Astros had everything to play for in terms of being able to secure that number 2 seed and that bye in the AL. I don't know, something about that just just feel like karma's the karma baseball god is going to come down and
I
just
agree.
rain a little fury on him.
I it's one of those things where it's like I saw that lineup come out and I'm like, okay, I number one, you're right. When there's another team that has something on the line here, right? When you're what you're vying for there in the AL West, it matters. Like you're just putting together a scrub lineup. But I'm gonna declare it right now. I think teams are I definitely think it has to do with teams don't want to come to Philly. I mean, the Diamondbacks probably have another excuse because they have to come, from the West Coast or whatever. But
yeah,
I think they look at it as a disadvantage. The Brewers, probably not even arguably, have a better rotation than the Phillies. The Brewers rotation is scary, but I think teams would rather go and take their chances in Milwaukee than they would come in here, just because I think the Diamondbacks are a good example of that. They clearly did not want to come to Philly. They were totally content taking that last spot. The fact that the league didn't even make the Marlins have to play that, I'm glad they didn't, because I wanted to know the time frames. And at that point, I was reserved to play whoever. I didn't care if it was the Marlins. I didn't care if it was the Diamondbacks. We got to beat them, whoever it is. We're a better team than whichever one. It's just a matter of executing. But yeah, I think the Marlins didn't put out their best lineup either. They had a couple guys on the bench who weren't playing, and I don't know if it were both teams trying to get out of coming to Philly. I don't know, but I think I think there is definitely some karma to that, where you're now by not playing that last game, when you kind of still have something to play for, and that other team that you're playing has something to play for, and another team is relying on that outcome. I don't know. I felt like that was kind of crappy on the part of the Diamondbacks and Marlins there.
Listen, we'll see what happens. We'll see how it all shakes out, right? But this season, very, very up and down. You saw a lot of guys have a lot of moments where they really struggled, right? There was the most notable run, right? Trey Turner. Trey Turner has that beginning of the season where he's really pressing and really struggling. And for me, highlight of the season is that standing ovation. And his numbers since then are that of the Trey Turner that we kind of knew and thought we were going to get.
Yeah, I mean, his numbers now, like I think he finished the season with 26 home runs, which is a lot for him anyway. And then to just think where he was in the beginning of August and just how he finished those last 2 months of the season, absolutely crazy. I mean, I'm almost sick of hearing like on national TV them talking about the standing of. It's awesome. I'm glad that it happened. But it's just been one of those things where the national media, it's actually one time they're actually going to make Phillies fans look good here. But whether it worked or not, whether it was the ovation or whatever it was. So the whole story behind the ovation, right? I think it was this guy Mitch Rupert, who used to cover Williamsport when they were out there. He kind of gave an idea, and then Jack Fritz with WIP kind of ran with it, right? And then WIP kind of kept putting it out there, and it was one of those things. I just remember reading Twitter, reading Facebook, and just reading the arguments over, this is Philly, like we don't cheer for players who are underperforming. Other people are like, hey, let's try it, it might work. And it did. And I think the Inquirer did a feature on Jack Fritz and that whole story about it today. I was reading Matt Breen from the Inquirer did it today, and it was interesting. Fritz even says it. I don't think it was the standing ovation that actually made him better, but it was the fact that it took a lot of pressure off of him. I think he was able to relax. He's like, okay, I'm not sitting here getting booed every night and all this. I think it was able to take pressure off him, and he was just able to be Trey Turner again and just do what he does. And the results are showing.
It really is, right? So, and then the other guy that was struggling a lot, right? You got Schwarber, who's, had his home runs, right? The epic moonshots that he just projects, that's sometimes you feel like they're never going to land, right? He struggled. He had his struggles during the season. He had his times where he's, the strikeouts were like the conversation was almost like, what's going to be higher, his batting average or his strikeouts? And it got to the point where, his batting average, you didn't think he was going to get back to 200 at all. And he slowly but surely kind of, spent the rest of the season kind of creeping back and just, kind of hovered right around that 200 range. Right. But, the controversy with him, with him being the leadoff guy.
Yeah, I mean, I remember. I think there was 2 or 3 shows that we did done that had that. This was one of our major topics, right? I think it was one of the big debates going on at different points of the season. Is Schwarber a leadoff hitter? And the answer is, if you talk, 20 years ago, no, he's not. But in today's baseball, it's a different game. He ended up getting that. He got his on base percentage up to, I think, in the 360s. His OPS was like 817, and the guy hit 47 home runs and knocked in over 100 runs. Maybe that's what you're looking for from a 3 or 4 hitter. But again, it worked out of the leadoff spot. The Phillies win when he's there. I know that the batting average, that 197 or 196, whatever he finished the year with, is ugly to look at out of the leadoff hole. But he was getting on base, and again, it was really like he was leading off one time a game.
You can't argue with his production.
No,
right? The production, the way that he is able to produce runs for this team. And coming up in big moments where he's able to just, hit these moonshot home runs, and a lot of clutch spots. I mean, they really did build a lineup where you can't avoid anybody. You can't pitch around Schwarber because you've got Harper waiting in the wings. You can't pitch around Harper because you've got, Bohm and Real Muto, and you've got this mountain of guys that really, I think we're going to see, because Dombrowski really did build this roster for these short series, right? These 3-game, 5-game series. I love where they're going to be at kind of going into this, because you're going to see that production. You're going to see in these short series how they're able to just have these crooked numbers and really be able to come in and just produce for this pitching staff.
Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, I remember in the beginning of the year, it was pitching basically carrying us the entire way, right? And then this offense finally caught the fire that it needed to. And we saw the power really after, from August on. But even from June on, we started seeing that offense really starting to do what it can do. And just think of, like, how many crazy things happen, right? So, like, Turner was bad, not even just average. He was bad up until August. Yeah. Harper came back at, like, an accelerated rate from a Tommy John surgery, right? And while his power took a little while to get there, I would say it's fair to say it's pretty much back at this point. Nick Castellanos, I just saw that comment come up. He was going to be my next guy. Nick Castellanos, what a bounce back year, right? I mean, he carried the team. He had a couple bad months here and there, but I mean, that's the nature of the game, right? Everyone's going to go through their slumps, but Castellanos had a great year. Again, over 100 RBIs. Look at his his home run total went back up. He was toward the top of the league in doubles. His defense has drastically improved. So there's just so many different guys who are contributing on this team. Yet, and I just named 3 big ones there. I'm not even mentioning the little guys who contributed, right? I mean, not even little guys. I mean, they're key parts. But Stott, boom, they had great seasons. Marsh had a great season. Rojas comes up and has a great season. It really went the way it needed to.
Yeah, I mean, you got what they end the season with 6 guys with 20+ home runs, right? Because Bohm gets the one, on Sunday. But you're right. The contributions that you got from those fringe players, there was a portion of time where the front of that lineup was really struggling, and those back end of the lineup guys really kind of held it together because they were producing. The guys that you just named, right? Marsh, Sosa, right? Jay Cave comes up and has moments where he's able to produce. I mean, the guy that was most impressive that came up during the season was Rojas. I mean, Rojas really seems like he's kind of cementing himself as the center fielder of the future, the way he's able to cover ground, especially if you're talking about an outfield that might include Schwarber out there, how important that is for this guy to be able to just negotiate that entire gap between right and left field. And Castellanos is not, his fielding is improved, but he's not fast either, right? So having a guy that can kind of go side to side, either gap, and you saw that throughout the year. You saw him, get into the gap and make those, those diving catches that save doubles, save triples, and some of those, ending innings. I love where this team is, right? And how fitting is it that, he's the guy that gets the winning hit that seals the, the playoff berth. I love everybody was where when they made that trade in the offseason to get Soto, and they traded away, guys that were, part of the daycare, and they're worried about they were going to lose the culture. Am I seeing things? I never saw any kind of drop in the culture or the support or any of the, like, they all, that core group may have gotten a little bit closer. I think, you bring in a guy like Trey Turner, and Trey Turner just kind of fits right in. It just, to me, I'm excited for the next couple of days, but I'm excited what this run could be like.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same way. You're right. I mean, the thing was, I still remember getting the alert on my watch about the Phillies getting Soto, and I know the risk that came with Soto, right? It could be a little wild, whatever. I saw we gave up Vierling and Maton. They were fun guys to have in the clubhouse, but realistically, they're replaceable, right? And I think the Phillies did a good.
They're fringe guys, right? They're the guys that you replaced with, like a Weston Wilson and Cody Clemens and like they're not essential pieces.
Right. Exactly. And I looked what you were saying about the the culture in this clubhouse. The biggest, obviously, you see it after the games, they're dumping water and seeds and gum and whatever else on everyone's head after the games. But after watching them clinch and watching the celebrations in the clubhouse, it really gives you a sense of just how much these new guys are fitting in, right? Trey Turner was right there in the middle with Stubbs going nuts half the time. Rojas was in the middle for some of it. Ranger's not new, but it's good to see some of these guys who usually you don't always necessarily see a lot of emotion from, just kind of getting right in the mix and just seeing like how close that clubhouse actually is. Because that's really the only time we get a glimpse into what the clubhouse is like during those celebrations, right? They don't usually let cameras in. They'll let people in for the interview at the lockers after a game, but that's really the only glimpse you get into it. So that's really a good way to see. And you're right. I think the culture for this team is awesome. They all get along, and you're right. It's the big difference between what the Phillies did this year, what the Mets did this year, what the Padres did this year, right? I mean, on paper, in the beginning of the season, how many people were picking the Padres and Mets over the Phillies, and only one of those teams made the playoffs, right? And talent is definitely a part of it, but if you stack up any of those rosters in the beginning of the year, you could argue that talent-wise, both those teams were better.
Yeah, listen, I will not argue with you on any of that. Like the culture of this team, right? And I think you saw, the way that they are able to kind of hold each other accountable, but they celebrate those wins, that those little after the after the game celebrations. Those are all like team building, like that just continues to just cement that camaraderie. And I just look at this and go, these guys are playing for each other. And that's a different level of accountability when it's not holding yourself accountable for yourself, but holding yourself accountable for others. This team is every ounce of the way that a team should be built. And I gotta give kudos to Dombrowski, right? Because the way that he kind of built this roster, you added guys all throughout the year, right? You make the Michael Lorenzen trade, and then the way that he was able to produce early, right? He gets that early game in Miami where he goes 8. And I think he gives up maybe, I think it was like 1 run, 2 runs.
And he goes 1 or 2. Yeah, it wasn't a lot.
And then, he comes back. The first game he pitches the no-hitter, which was fucking awesome. Like, you saw those moves. You saw the little tinkering. You never saw any panic. And I think the players feed off that. When you see a general manager that's making tons of moves, that to me as a team screams desperation. Right now, I'm looking at this and going, they saw the little places where they want to tinker and they want to add little bits. Because I think Lorenzen, while he's not going to get a starting, he's not going to start a playoff game for the Phillies this fall. He's going to play a role out of that bullpen. What role that is, I don't know. But he is going to factor into that bullpen, and I think he makes that bullpen deeper.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he doesn't you could definitely tell. I think it's definitely kind of like what we had with Strom earlier in the year, where they've just pushed so many over their innings over their limit that I think they're just losing some of their effectiveness, and it's part of it is part of the game. So I don't really think we see him in a lot of high leverage situations, at least in the first series, the wild card series. Mm-hmm. I think we mainly see him, especially in a short series like this, only if say Nola struggles to get out of the fourth inning or something like that. We may see him come in a little bit just to eat up an inning or two. But I mean, and the thing is with playoff series, you have to go balls to the wall the entire time. You can't be like, here regular season, okay, we're down 8 runs. It's the 7th inning, throwing a mop-up guy. Like, you got to, at this point in the playoffs, you got to make sure they don't score any more runs, right? You got to give your offense a chance to catch that back up. So I don't him and Walker, I don't really want to see in this series at all. I don't know if there's anyone better to put on the postseason roster instead of them. Maybe put like a Junior Marte on there. I don't know if I trust him though either. I'm just saying in terms of stuff, right? He's got some overpowering stuff at times. So, but I don't know if there's anyone better that we could put there in front of them. So I think they might get a spot in case you need them for those those longer relief situations. But I don't want to have to see Lorenzen or Walker pitch in the wild card series. If we have to see that, then something went bad with the starting pitching, I think. Yeah,
I agree. I think that's that's your break glass in case of emergency kind of guy.
Exactly.
But as far as this season goes, is there anything that happened this year that stands out as far as epic moments during the season?
I feel like there were. I actually feel like there were so many, and I can't wait already for the 2023 video yearbook to come out because I'm sure I'm forgetting some. Obviously, we mentioned the Turner ovation, the Lorenzen no hitter. That game with Harper hitting his 300th. I know they ended up losing it, but like some of those comebacks that they had from some of those were just huge. Like you said, it's one of the big things. It's not necessarily a moment, but a thing that happened that I feel like doesn't happen very often is, the Phillies having that depth in the minor leagues where they're calling guys up, even prospects. Rojas coming up and panning out. Now, Kerkering, I think he's only 3 appearances so far. But like we had 2 guys who had good minor league seasons actually come up and make some impacts. And from the sounds of it, Kerkering's making that postseason roster. So I think we could see him.
I was just about to ask you, is that for a guy who started the year in Single A and basically just climbed the ladder every step, just kind of proved that he belonged. That you can't argue with his stuff at all from what you saw from that brief little snippet that you saw.
Mm-hmm.
The only part that I struggle with is like, do you take a guy like that who doesn't know any better and do you put him in a high leverage spot?
So I don't know how high leverage I would at this point. But Thompson seems to trust him. Like, I mean, that slider is nasty.
Does.
He throws it and he throws it accurately, but then it's weird. He actually it's almost like he builds his fastball off the slider, which is kind of the opposite of how most pitchers work. But it seemed it's been working for him. I know he hasn't faced great opponents in who did he face? I guess the Pirates and Mets, right?
Pirates and Mets, yeah. So
I don't think he's faced anyone. But I mean, the thing is no one's faced him. So I don't know if I put him in in an 8th or 9th inning situation, but in a 6th or 7th inning where you got to get a strikeout. I mean, he's a guy you're going to put in to get a strikeout. Like, I mean, that's what he's there for.
It's almost like he does. Like there's no there's no affect at all. He just goes in and just does. He's like, I'm just going to go in and just do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that blind, not paying attention to anything else really does benefit him because he's not coming in with years of experience and bad experiences and blowing it. Like maybe that could be, a situation where, Nola goes 5 1/3, right? And you bring him in to get 2 outs. And then you go to someone else and then at the start of the next inning.
Right.
Like I could envision a scenario like that.
I could definitely envision a scenario like that. Yeah. And again, I don't think you want to put, 8th or 9th inning pressure on the guy yet. But yeah, I mean, he has the stuff. He can get out major league hitters. But I think that's one of the coolest stories and it was only very short lived. But I think over the course of the season, the fact that he started out in low A and ended up in the major leagues is probably one of the coolest stories, not just for the Phillies, but in all of baseball.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right. So tomorrow night, 8:08, Phillies and Marlins, they're going to kick it off. They're going to close out the last game of the first day of postseason baseball. So you got Zach Wheeler, the projected starter for Miami is Jesus Luzardo. Talk to me about that matchup and how you feel like that could play out.
So going into the season, Luzardo was one of my kind of one of my favorite pitchers going into it, not like in terms of teams, but just what he has. Fantasy baseball team drafted him. He had a great, I would say, first like through May or so. Then he struggled a little bit. He's not been real good over the last, I would say, month or two, and his road starts have really not been great over those last couple spots. I think actually the Phillies have a better opportunity going against Luzardo than they do Braxton Garrett. I think they're going to jump all over Luzardo early on. Wheeler is another, and we were talking about how Kirkland just kind of goes out there and kind of shuts everything else off. I feel like Wheeler and Nola do the same thing. Well, Wheeler's a much better pitcher this year. I feel like Wheeler's going to go out there. He knows what he's got to do. He's been there before. He pitched pretty well in the postseason last year. I really think the Phillies have an advantage in game one. Game two, I think, is way more of a toss-up. But I like what Wheeler has. I like the fact that we have enough tough righties to get to Luzardo. So I think, and I think, Bryce is one of those guys, and Stott, they're guys who I don't really care who they're facing. Like, I don't care if they're facing the toughest lefty on the planet. Like, both those guys can still hit lefties. But Castellanos, I think, has a big series. We're going to need Bohm to, we're going to need our right-handers to basically, to do some stuff here because they're going to be throwing a bunch of lefties at us, both in the starting rotation and out of the bullpen. So, but I like the pitching matchup in game one as of right now the most.
Yeah, for me, I think what you said is really on point, right? This is going to be as right-handed heavy as you can make it, right, without excluding your stars. I think, you're not going to see any of the righty-lefty matchup. I think you're going to see a guy like Stott, to me, is a guy that's going to play. He's earned it. He's going to play every day. But you're going to see Schwarber. You're going to see Harper. But you're going to see those guys, right? So ideally, like what's the right-handed heavy lineup look like for you?
So I think Thompson will kind of do what he normally does and does the every other. But I think toward the bottom, there's a spot for him to stack a couple of righties in a row. Because I actually hate just going – because then once they bring in a right-handed reliever, then your whole lineup is kind of shot. So I like the idea of every other in the top. So I like Schwarber, Turner, Harper. I like Bohm. I like getting another righty in there that I wouldn't mind putting Stott in, and then maybe doubling righties in Castellanos and Real Muto in some way back there. Okay. And then going from there. But then again, you might want to switch Stott and put one of those righties behind Bohm, because then I'm thinking they're not going to play Marsh tomorrow because of how bad he's been against left-handed pitching, and he just hasn't really been seeing it. So I wouldn't be surprised if Pache and Rojas get the other spots, but then that's really, really, really right-handed heavy. But the good thing is then take out Pache, put Marsh in later in the game, kind of gives you some versatility there.
Right. I like where you're going in terms of that, right? Because you get that right-handed heavy lineup early. You get the opportunity to put a bunch of runs up on the board. And then that's the role I think that Marsh plays on those nights. That he becomes that late inning defensive replacement. If that spot comes up, in the bottom of the seventh, that you could see a spot where Marsh might pinch hit and then play the eighth and ninth to really secure that outfield spot. But I think you're right. I think that the right-handed heavy lineup, and I like the idea of like that mid to late part of the lineup stacking in some way, shape, or form, right? Between, Bohm and Castellanos and Real Muto. I think you see in some way, shape, or form, you stack two of them somewhere in that mid to late part of the lineup.
Yeah, exactly. It's also kind of interesting to see Marsh maybe being like having a defensive replacement come in who's actually probably a better hitter than the guy who's actually starting. Like if Marsh comes in to replace Pache, I actually kind of like having him come in later because you're not losing much in terms of defense. But I feel like Pache has shown flashes, but he's been bad in September at the plate.
Yeah.
So, but defensively, you're not going to lose much. So you know what? If it's for 5 or 6 innings or whatever it is, put him in there and then let Marsh finish out the game. But again, the Marlins bullpen is a strength. They have some tough lefties in that pen too. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how Thompson manages the lineup there.
Yeah, you're definitely going to see guys like AJ Puck. You're going to see those guys.
I should give you AJ Puck. He stinks. I give him to me.
I know,
all
but
day.
like in terms of those big, quote unquote crafty lefties. Like
yes,
he's got that big winding, wind up. But I think you're in a spot where you're going to have to battle, right? But you've got guys that are battle tested, right? You saw last year with Harper. Right, those epic home runs that were in those clutch spots. It didn't matter if it was righty or lefty, right? And I think that's where even Adam, right, the Schwarber leadoff bomb. If the Schwarber leadoff bomb happens tomorrow night, that place will literally crumble. It will just explode. And as far as Schwarber being a DH, I think in this lineup he's going to have to be. Because you're going to want to put that by allowing him to be the DH, you allow another right-handed bat in the lineup to play the outfield.
I think Thompson already said Harper's playing first for the entirety of the playoffs. The nice thing is the way the playoff schedules are set up, it's set up to the point where basically there's built-in off days, so he should be good to go, barring any kind of crazy injury or something like that. But I think we'll only see him as a DH unless something crazy happens that we don't want to see.
No, God, no, I don't think so. I think that just and for him playing that new position, I think the more consistency that you can play, and the more that he knows that every day he's just going to go out and play first, I think that only does really well for his psyche. And to think about that, and that's something we didn't even talk about at the beginning. The fact that he came in and is now playing a completely new position that he hadn't played professionally before and did it really well is just a testament to how much of an athlete and how incredible he is to look at the production that he can still make, right? And then the other thing I thought about was I heard someone talking about the universal DH and debating back and forth about whether or not they liked it or not. And I thought about this and I'm like, thank God the universal DH came in place last year because you wouldn't have had Harper all of last year. None of his production. And they don't get to the World Series last year without him there. So the fact that universal DH came in place right then gave them the opportunity. It really just opened my eyes to because I really kind of was on the fence about it. But it really is a better product when you think about having 9 batters bat instead of 8 batters and a pitcher. And then you put your guys in a position only in those interleague parks and then in the World Series where, now in the middle of the season, this one you're just going to DH. It really does give consistency to both leagues. It allows it to be a much more level playing field. But in terms of Suarez, right? Adam's asking about Suarez coming out of the bullpen. What are your thoughts? Because I think the idea is that, ideally you save him for game 3 if needed. If they find themselves in a position, I feel like they have the arms in the bullpen to not go there. But obviously, God forbid you're in a situation where you need him to come in and pitch. He's obviously going to come in and pitch.
Yeah. I also think it's one of those things where looking at what we had last year in the bullpen against what we have this year, it makes all the difference. You're right. I don't want to use Ranger unless it's an absolute necessity, because I think there's more value for him as a starter. Who else is going to be a game 3 starter? I mean, Christopher Sanchez, I wouldn't mind. I don't really want Taijuan Walker touching the baseball to start a game unless it's absolutely necessary. I just don't want to see it. He just, again, it's nothing against Taijuan. He showed some good flashes this year, but I mean, just he's like, everyone talks about Nola. No one's talking about how bad Walker has been. Like, I mean, he gives up four runs in the first 2 innings every single game. Like that's just what it is. So sorry, I'm digressing here, but Ranger, I think, needs to be your number 3. Last year, you basically had Alvarado and Dominguez as trustworthy guys out of the back of the bullpen, right? Am I forgetting someone? I don't really think so, right?
No, because if you remember, they went heavy on those guys throughout every series.
I guess.
Robertson was, to a point.
Yeah.
But those 2 guys are guys that they just leaned on heavy.
Right. Now, this year, I don't see a need to fade because Ranger is like he's good, he's crafty, but he's not like a blow up by you type pitcher. So I would much rather see a mix of Alvarado and Kimbrel would be my first 2 choices. Dominguez has the stuff. I know he hasn't been great, but he has good stuff. Like if his command is there, he can still be good. Hoffman, I think you got to look at putting in. Trusting him. Yeah. And Soto, I don't know if I'd let him go a full inning, but if you need to get a lefty out and you don't want to and you want to save Alvarado for later, I mean, you got 2 solid left-handers now where I don't think you need Suarez out of the bullpen unless it's absolutely dire. So I would say don't use him out of the bullpen. Could he come in? Absolutely he could. But I would say if he has to come in, something else went wrong.
Right. And let's not forget, right? You have other lefties in the bullpen too, right? You've got guys that can come in and give you, right? You got Strahm, you got Soto, you got Christopher Sanchez. Like you have other guys in there that if you need a lefty on lefty matchup, that you can have those guys come in and throw to one batter to end an inning and not have to feel like you have to come back to them at the end of the at the start of the next inning. So talk to me about the Marlins lineup, right? We talked a lot about the pitching. What about is there anything about the Marlins lineup that gives you pause?
There's a couple. Arise, I know his health is a little bit questionable right now, so I don't know how healthy he is or what his status is going to be going into the series. I'd have to imagine this is a postseason series. He's going to try to play. Obviously, that he's going to get on base. He's a Phillies killer. So that's just what's going to happen. He's going to get on base a lot. We just got to neutralize everyone behind him. Jorge Soler scares me because of his pop. I think, that's one of those ones where, if someone's hanging a curveball or a slider or something like that, he's going to hit it 600 feet. For me, it's Josh Bell. He was my next guy. Yeah. Josh Bell, he's always killed the Phillies. So he was my third guy. And Jake Berger has some pop too. I don't know if I wouldn't say I'm afraid of him, but he can be dangerous if you're not careful with him.
Yeah. And listen, Jazz Chisholm is another guy that can get on and just be a menace on the base path. Right. So he's a guy that you're going to have to minimize the mistakes. You're not going to be able to, put guys on, especially guys like Chisholm, because, he could turn a walk into, he could in a couple pitches be standing on third base.
Yeah.
So, but I like the way that this lineup, I like the way that the Phillies pitching matches up with this lineup. I feel like, especially in game 1, you get on top of them in game 1, you really kind of set the table for what to expect. And then maybe that puts them on their heels game 2. They feel on edge. And then you really just try to jump on, you try to jump on the pitching early and really just, I think being at home and really jumping all over the team early is really going to put them on their heels. Because you've seen in moments, you've seen this Marlins team fold. I like the combination of the pitching and how it matches up with the Marlins lineup.
Yeah, I do too. I just think, especially in terms of bullpen, we're so much deeper. A 3-game series, I'm not afraid of our pitching. The longer series, I think, when we get into a 5 and 7 game series, I'm going to be a little bit more nervous about our starters there. But overall, I like our pitching. I like our matchups there. Right. It's being careful to the right guys here. And it's really, I think it's going to boil down. Wheeler's usually pretty good with it. I think it's going to boil down to Nola in game 2. But you're absolutely right. If they jump out to an early lead big tomorrow, what that stadium's going to do. Also, think about just what that stadium's going to be like. Have the Marlins ever played in a situation like this? Like, they might need to wear like earplugs or something. Like, they're used to playing in silence. Are they going to be ready for Citizens Bank Park decibels?
Having gone down there a couple years ago, we were down in Florida, went to a game, and Eric, I'll tell you, I mean, granted, the game was the end of April, but I was the only my wife and I, we were the only person sitting in our section.
That's crazy.
Like, it's just wild. So, like, to think about them playing in that environment at home and then having to come into this environment. And the bulk of this team, there's not a ton of playoff experience. If there's anybody that's got playoff experience, I got to think the only guy might be like Josh Bell has playoff experience.
Yeah, he's been around, so he's
But like Soler, maybe does Jorge Soler have?
I don't know if he does or not. Did the Twins make the postseason last year? Because Arise was on the Twins last year. Did they win the Central last year, or was that someone else? I don't remember now. Now there's some there's some bullpen guys who have some playoff experience, but the rotation's really young. None of the rotation. Yeah, Robertson would have it. And there might be a couple other guys. I'm blanking on some of their other relievers right now. But yeah, I mean, and that's another benefit we have from last year, right? A lot of these, we saw some really young players, but they have playoff experience. Like having guys like Stott and Ranger and Bohm and Marsh with not just playoff experience, but successful playoff experience, I think is huge.
I love it. So like, all right. So in terms of this series, how in your ideal world, right? They take care of it in 2 games, and then they get ready for the Braves. How do you see this series playing out?
So ideally, yeah, they take it in 2. I get nervous about game 2. I want to say sweep, but just to play devil's advocate here, I'm going to say that I think they win game 1 pretty handily. I think 2 is a close game. I think they close out with game 3. I don't think Nola pitches terribly, but I think he gives up like 4 runs, and for some reason the Phillies just can't hit Braxton Garrett, and the offense looks like incompetent again. But I think by game 3 we'll be fine.
Okay.
I hope I'm wrong. I really hope that they win 13-0 tomorrow. But I'm just saying, like, for a devil's advocate thing here, if they're going to lose a game, I could definitely see it being game 2. I don't want them to. I'm hoping, because I'm going to be there, so I definitely want to see a clinching game. But I get nervous a little bit about it, just because we have seen the inconsistency with Nola. I've always been a Nola defender. I think he can step up in big moments. But I'm shaky with some of that.
Like for all the struggles that he had, he did really step up in those big moments
last year.
So I don't know. I think you have a short hook with Nola. I think you
have to.
So I could envision a scenario maybe where he pitches maybe 3, 4, maybe goes through the lineup twice, and then you just see a barrage of your pick your matchup for whoever's coming up that inning, whether it's, Sosa, or whether it's, it's Kierkering, if it's Strom, if it's Sanchez, whoever it is. I feel like game 2 you might see a lot of pitching changes towards the end of that game. But I think if you go matchup for matchup, that might be the Phillies' advantage, because they have the arms in the bullpen to be able to go at the Marlins lineup, where I don't really think that the Marlins can go at the same change rate to be able to kind of match the power that the Phillies are going to bring in that lineup.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Yeah. And the nice thing about the short series, which we talked about, is it gives the Phillies a lot more flexibility out of the pen, who you can use. Whereas, in a 7-game series, you're not going to be using whoever you plan on pitching in game 3 or 4 out of the pen probably. because, you obviously got to save them up. So there's a lot of versatility with the bullpen for a short series like this. I mean, they got to just play to win. So yeah, first time you see Nola starting to struggle, you got to get someone up. I mean, that's how managers manage the postseason anyway. I mean, hardly anyone's given a long leash in the postseason because it's just so critical. Every pitch matters.
Oh God, everything, it's magnified tenfold. All right, so normally on the Eagle shows, right, we give a player of the game, maybe a big spot. I want to do the same thing. What do we have in terms of who's your standout player for this series, and then maybe give me a moment that might give me a glimpse about why.
So, I think I alluded to it earlier. I think I'm going to go Castellanos. I think he has a big series here. Number one, going against the lefties, I think he'll thrive in that case. Also, he's from the Miami area. I know at one point there was rumblings about him maybe wanting to sign in Miami. They never really made him an offer, so maybe he's going to be a little fired up about that. I don't know. I just have a feeling Castellanos is one of those guys where he's another one who just doesn't show that anything bothers him. He just always seems like, he'll argue with an ump if there's a bad call or something like that. But he just seems like he's smooth, not nervous. He's just with it. I think he's going to have a big game. And yeah, I think I don't know if I have an exact situation, but I'm thinking I can see at least one home run in either game 1 or game 2 here for Castellanos. I'm
going Trey Turner. I'm going to stay on the right side. I'm going to go Trey Turner. I feel like this could be, cementing the beginning of his legacy in this, with this playoff run. And I feel like he has multiple home runs. I feel like he has, maybe one, maybe two, at least two, but maybe three. I feel like I'm leaning towards 3. I just feel like something tells me he's got he's trending in that direction where he's getting right. And he's a guy, right, who's, in the last couple of days has been day to day. But I really feel like he takes that playoff run to new heights. Is excited about being here, excited about being here in the postseason and what that's going to be like to play in front of these fans. Because even he's never been in a playoff game in this stadium, and what that experience might be like for him. That's just a guy that I've just been so happy to see the progress throughout the season that I feel like it's only going to trend. It's only trended in the upper direction for him. So I'm looking at Trey Turner as a guy, but. Listen, I wouldn't be surprised if there's other guys that step up, but I'm really looking at the offense to really take care of round 1 with this wild card.
Yeah, I am too. I think there's plenty of guys who could step up, and that's why it's tough. I really think, like you said, there could be 3 or 4 guys we're talking about by the time the series is over. But yeah, I think you got to focus on the righties at this point. I think we need them to step up. Those are the guys that you need to step up. Obviously. You kind of expect it's almost unfair, but you almost expect every time Harper comes up in a big spot for him to do something.
But the craziest thing, though, is that he does. You expect that, and then he follows through on it.
You keep saying to yourself, it's like it can't always happen, right? And yet it almost kind of does always happen.
And then it does.
Yeah.
It's wild. Well, listen, we're going to take a commercial break. On the back end of this, we're going to talk a little wild. We'll talk all the wild card matchups and then try to give us maybe a preview of what we might see in the postseason.
Sounds good.
Von C. Brewing Company is a 20-barrel, 16,000 square foot microbrewery with a 2,500 square foot tasting room, including a spacious outside beer gardens in Norristown, PA, in the heart of Montgomery County. The Von C. family is part of the family that started C. Schmidt and Son Brewing in 1860. Stop in Wednesday through Sunday and taste a variety of draft and 16-ounce cans of originally brewed beer and tell them the Drunk on Broad crew sent you. Von C. Brewing is located at 1210 Stenbridge Street, Suite 300 in Norristown. Cheers.
Team Clicks are the only glasses for real sports fans. With interchangeable arms, you can support all of your favorite teams, or even make and create custom options as well. These die-hard sports fans have realized that sports fans needed something other than face paint to show their love and passion for their teams. Go to teamclicks.com/DOB and show your love for your hometown team.
La Torrent's curated collection of men's and women's watches is a perfect investment that lasts for years to come and fits perfectly with your every outfit and style. Our range of classic watches aren't just a great perfect formal and casual accessory, but a time machine that takes you back to memories. Explore our collection of timeless watches that can reflect your taste, personality, and personal style. Our exclusive collection of carefully curated, affordable luxury watches is what you need to make a personalized style statement. You can take pride in your prized possession, handing it over to the next generations as your most loved asset that they can also own and display with the same pride. These high-quality pieces stand the test of time, giving exceptional value and return on your investment. Go to la-touraine.com and use code DOB at checkout and get 10% off.
If you're looking for unique sports apparel, check out Streaker Sports. They've dug deep into the archives and have brought back some incredible defunct team logos and have even created entire defunct league collections. They also have collections paying homage to sports culture, including the Miracle on Ice, Slap Shot, Caddyshack, the Mighty Ducks, and even have a license with Wiffle Ball and USA Hockey. Only for Drunk on Broad listeners, use code BROAD at checkout to get 10% off anything at streakersports.com. Again, that's 10% off anything at streakersports.com with discount code BROAD.
All right, here we go. Eric, let's break down the wild card matchups, right? So the other wild card matchup, the Diamondbacks are going to travel to Milwaukee. They're going to play the Central Division winner. How do you see that series playing out?
So I was originally going to take the Brewers, and I don't know if this is going to make that much. It will make a difference, obviously, but I don't know how much of a difference. But I just saw Brandon Woodruff is out for the wild card series now.
They said he might be out the whole postseason.
He could be. They're going to update that part, I think, later on, but he's definitely out for this series. It doesn't sound good. I think the strength the Brewers had coming into this was their starting pitching, and losing him is massive. The Diamondbacks are kind of a scrappy team. I actually could see the Diamondbacks winning that series, though. So I think I'm picking the Diamondbacks in that series.
So do I. I really like the Diamondbacks in what they in the way that they play. Like you said, like they're a young, scrappy team. They don't know any better. So they're going in there with kind of there's not a whole lot of playoff experience on that roster, outside of a couple of guys. But I really like the way that their offense, they really produce a lot of runs. Corbin Carroll's a guy that's just electric. He's just, to me, a guy who kind of sets the table for them. And I like the way that matchup plays out, even though it's going to play out in Milwaukee. I think that team, it could play out, similar to last year, right? Where the Phillies go into St. Louis and they basically, they go in and kind of take care of business early.
Yeah, I agree. And the Diamondbacks have their starting pitching isn't really any slouch either, with Gallen and Kelly. Now I know Kelly just pitched, I think, the last game of the season on Saturday, so he probably won't be available until at least game 2 or game 3. But yeah. So but I still think they can still win that series. I think it'll be a close one though. I think that one goes 3 games. Okay. But I think the Diamondbacks take it. So
the one thing, the winner of that series is going to face LA. The winner of the Phillies Marlins series is going to face the Braves. Do you like the idea that this is a static bracket? Because me personally, I prefer the option where you get to reseed, and whatever the highest team that's left plays the lowest team. I just don't like the idea of this like static bracket.
Yeah, I know that's been a topic, especially they saw it last year where basically none of the top seeds really did that well. So yeah, I think there's definitely an advantage to reseeding. Almost every other sport does it. I'm pretty sure, right? And correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think they all pretty much do. So I would be okay with it. Now, kind of from a biased standpoint, the Phillies have kind of benefited from it not being a static bracket, so or not being a reseeding bracket. So I guess from that standpoint, like looking at what's benefited my team, it's been okay. But if I'm the Braves and I won all those games and I'm still then playing, a 4 seed when a 6 seed is still in it, yeah, I might be a little frustrated.
Yeah, and I think like obviously this had the benefits of last year, right? Because they get to face the Braves. If there is ever a scenario where I have to face the Braves in a series, well, I want it to be a shorter series because that gives me a better chance. So in this scenario, I like it. I like the fact that they would match up with the Braves in this round and not in that NLCS round, because I think the Braves in a 7-game series are going to have the advantage. So in terms of on the AL side, right, the top AL brackets, starts with the Orioles and the Astros, right? The Astros get that number 2 seed on the last day.
Mm-hmm.
The Rays and the Rangers are going to face off, and the winner is going to play in Baltimore. What do you think about in that Rays Rangers?
That's actually outside of the Phillies series. That's a series I'm looking forward to the most in the wild card round. That should be really good. I think the Rays win it. I think the Rangers had a good team. Their pitching is too decimated right now. Losing DeGrom now. I think Scherzer's out still, right?
Yep.
And Eovaldi has been a shell of himself since he was put on the IL. I mean, those 3 guys. Well, obviously Scherzer didn't get there until much later, but their rotation was something that was helping carry them, and it's just not there anymore. So you're starting to lose some depth in that starting rotation. I'm not saying it's horrible, but the Rays, I think, are just a more well-rounded team at this point. So I think the Rays win that series. Again, though, I think it goes 3 games.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like the Rays Rangers matchup. It is an exciting one to watch because you have that Rays team is kind of built. They're built from the ground up, right? And Randy Arozarena is a guy that I just love to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like the way that they're that they will match up. Tampa's gonna have the advantage of playing at home, whatever that means, right? Because I'm not sure how many people are going to show up, but just the fact that they're not traveling, right, does give them a little bit of an advantage. But I think the biggest thing that's going to benefit the Rays is going to be that pitching, Matt. The pitching on the Ranger side, like you said, it really just isn't there. It was there early, and they built up that lead, and you just saw it kind of just dwindle throughout the whole season. And now not having, Scherzer or DeGrom at the top, I think that they're really going to struggle with starting pitching. And in this series, as good as the games might be, it really wouldn't surprise me if the Rays just win the first 2.
Yeah, honestly, you were mentioning Arozarena. Tyler Glasnow might be one of my favorite pitchers to watch in baseball. He is filthy. So yeah, I'd have to imagine he's going to shut them down.
Most definitely, right? And now you've got the last wild card matchup. You got the Blue Jays and Twins. Something about October baseball in Minnesota. Something just doesn't sit right. I feel like it's like something might be wrong, and it always boggles me, like that city in a cold weather city, right? And just hypothetically say that the Twins would make it to the World Series. You imagine playing a World Series game in November in Minnesota?
No.
Like to me, there's just something wrong. That city needs a dome on their stadium. But the Blue Jays have that. They've got that dearth of young talent in their lineup. Where do you like that matchup going?
I like the Blue Jays. I think I've said it before on here. The AL Central is my least favorite division of baseball. I find it so boring. There's not one team I like. They never did anything to me, but I don't want to see any AL Central team go further because I don't want to have to watch any more of their games. But I do think the Blue Jays win that series. I don't think the Twins won because the rest of the division was so bad. I think there's like someone had to win the division.
Somebody had to win the division, right?
Right.
They do seem like it was like a fraudulent division win.
It was horrible.
And listen, any team that gets rid of a guy like Arise, something has me looking sideways at you. And then we don't have to go through every round, but out of the teams, so the teams that are left, who do you like in the AL to come out of the AL, and then who are you liking to come out of the NL?
So I'll do AL first. I think like the Orioles right now, number one, I want to see that. Like, I'm not just thinking with my head there, I'm thinking with my heart. Like, they're a fun team to watch. I really like the Orioles. So it would be really cool to see them make it to the World Series, only because like they're not even supposed to be out of the rebuild fully yet, and yet they're the number one seed in the AL. Like it is so impressive what they were able to do. So I wouldn't mind. I would like to see the Orioles there, and I think they have a legit shot. I really think it's going to be between. I'm trying to think. I think honestly, you're looking at two AL East teams. I think you're going to be looking at the Rays or Orioles, but they're going to play against each other if the Orioles win or if the Rays win. I believe, aren't they? I forget what the bracket looks like there, but I think they may be playing each other.
So the Rays and Orioles would match up in the DS.
Right. So I think it's going to be the Orioles then. And in the NL, I'm going to go with a homer pick here, but I legit think it's doable. The only thing that holds me back from picking the Phillies realistically is the fact that they went there last year. If they didn't go there last year, I'd be totally honest. It's just so hard to do it twice. But if we get through, if we get through the Marlins here and we can make, and we can get hot, I really don't mind our chances against Atlanta in a 5-game series. We saw it last year. They're going to have had such a long layoff. Although, did you see what the Braves are doing? They're having simulated postseason games at their stadium to get their guys used to some cheers. So that was at first when I read it, I couldn't tell if it was satire or not, but it sounds like it might be the real deal.
Oh God!
So that's objectively hilarious. But yeah, I think the Phillies do match up against the Braves. We saw it, in the last series. Like even the games we lost, we were not losing by a ton. Like they weren't blowing us out. The problem is we're gonna have to go tit for tat with their offense because as good as your pitching can be, like they even rocked Wheeler, right? And Wheeler was pitching pretty well that night. I mean, their offense is going to put up 4 or 5 runs a game. You just got to make sure you can get to their starters too. And who's hurt? Morton's hurt. Fried's hurt. Yeah. So really, you got Strider, who doesn't like pitching in front of crowds apparently. And we rocked him last year.
That was hilarious.
So yeah, it's just what a joke. So I really think like we stack up okay against them. So I'm going to go with the homer pick, and I'm going to take the Phillies to go to the World Series again. And I think it's a rematch of 83, but I think the Phillies win it this time.
I feel like we've been sending karmatic brainwaves back and forth because I'm literally like the Orioles have been playing so well so long. It's really good to have Baltimore be good again. Mm-hmm. Because that city is a really good fan base, and they deserve to not have to live in the squander of what they've been stuck in the basement of the AL East for what seems like forever. Since it seems like they haven't been relevant, since Cal Ripken was there. I really would love to see that 83-95, the I-95 matchup of, because I feel like the one thing that would be great about that is that the fan bases will travel. Mm-hmm. That Philly fans will get in their cars and drive to Baltimore, and the Baltimore people are driving up here to Philly. And I think that is only great for baseball when those two fan bases that are, geographic rivals, they're not really rivals, but geographically the fan bases are close enough that, you could see a lot of battling out I would love to see the Orioles season play out in a way where they match up with the Phillies. And I like your analysis of it, of the series in Atlanta. Those games are not going to be a 2-1 playoff matchup. Like those games are going to be like 11-8. You're going to see I think you're going to see some double-digit scores in that series because we saw what Atlanta was able to do when they were able to come in here that series where it seemed like your head was just on a swivel because every time you turn around, someone was hitting one in the second deck. So you're really going to have to battle them offensively. But I like the Phillies' chances because of the state of the Atlanta's pitching is not ideal right now. It's not where it could be. And that makes this matchup much more palatable. And then I like their matchup with whoever they're going to face, whoever they would face, in the ALCS, whether it's the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks, or the Brewers. I think the only team that kind of stands in their way of getting back to the World Series is the Braves.
I agree with that. Yep. The
only thing I want to see, though, I want to see Houston get knocked out.
Oh,
I would love to see them get knocked out early. And even if it's a young Blue Jays team that kind of knocks them out, I would love to see that. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Rays are there, and it could be a matchup of 08 where we run into the Rays again.
Yeah, I really think when you look at the American League, what the AL East did this year compared to the rest of the American League is just it's mind-boggling how good that division was and how many wins. I mean, now I know they've changed the schedule, so you don't play them as many times, but you're still playing each of those teams more times than you're playing outside of that division. And I mean, the Yankees finished only a few games under 500, and they were the worst in the division by far. Like it was it's a really good division, and your top two teams there, and even the Blue Jays. I mean, they're not a bad team, but so they could. I think they could go. They could go right up against the Astros there if they had to. But yeah, I just really think you're looking at either the Rays or Orioles from the AL.
I love it. Well, Eric, let's do final thoughts. Final thought for me: Red October just kicks off the most wonderful. I feel like I should be playing the Christmas song. It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Me too.
You got playoff baseball. You got the NFL. Is rolling into week 5. The hockey's about to kick off in a couple weeks. Basketball, spring, whatever that menagerie of bullshit is over there. But it's really just a confluence of all of the sports are literally all happening at the same time. Just a great time for watching sports. So just really, really excited to enjoy and really get back on that, with the Phillies getting into the postseason and the Eagles playing really, they're 4-0.
Mm-hmm.
It just lifts lifts those fan bases to a place where everybody's just in a good mood.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is it's really like the ultimate part of the sports season, really, because you start getting everything else starting back up. You get the baseball season winding down. I just remember last year, like the way this worked. I remember being like emotionally spent after the Phillies were done. Like listen, obviously I'm on here, so the Phillies are my number one team. The Birds are not far behind though, and I just remember like I'd watch Birds games, couldn't really get fired up. I'm just so emotionally spent from that Phillies run and just being like exhausted from staying up late or just the range of emotions you go through feeling it. I eventually got it, but the one nice thing is, like you said, won't really have to invest too much time emotionally into the Sixers this year because what a dumpster fire we have over there right now. But that's for another day. Well, Red October, go Phils.
Yeah, that's a go Phils. Listen, enjoy. Get your popcorn ready. It's going to be an exciting time. But we're just excited to see. Right, Eric's got a piece coming out about this most recent season, so go check that out. That's on That Ball's Out of Here. Eric, you got anything else coming up?
That's my kind of big one right now. Just be kind of like they released the wild card series rosters tomorrow, so just kind of a prediction on there. So nothing real crazy. I think some of the things that I mentioned were already on here. There's one or two maybe little surprises, but not much on there. That's really it for now. The rest I'm going to have to wait and see what happens over these next couple of games to see what kind of tone I'm going to be writing in.
Sounds good. All right. Well, listen, on the way out, go Phils.
Yep. Go Phils.
Hey, listen to this guy. Tell me how you're feeling here. You're screaming.
I am stoked, baby.
You're screaming like it's still the game going on.
We're talking about the Fightins here. The Fightins. Said.
This is the Broad Street Line, where Philly sports fans leave all of their sports hot takes. Call 267-405-3062 and show us your passion for Philly sports. Don't forget to tune in every every Wednesday at 8:30 when we listen to your live reactions to the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat.